Jacksonville. The child was born but couldn't sit still. 86 years later with no regret. You know that man can't sit still yet. The Great Depression couldn't get him down. He worked for his dad's store in town, collecting money in small amounts. The poor whites and blacks in their furniture accounts. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. As he'd collect, he'd talk to folks. He'd hear legends, tales, songs, and jokes. Now this fine treasure he'd record and write. He was colorblind, didn't see black and white. Writer's project for the WPA. Zora Neale Hurston, he earned his pay. Crackers and blacks, they talk for hours. It was a barefoot history in this land of flowers.
The week that was from WBRN Radio and the Boston Red Network. We're on the 17th of November 2018 as the month of November is ticking away towards December and the end of the year. The election cycle is in fact winding down. We had an election in the state of Georgia. In Georgia, Stacey Abrams, the progressive candidate for governor, abruptly ended her campaign without a concession. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that her campaign ended. She is aware of the fact that Kemp will be certified as the winner of the gubernatorial contest in 2018, a fact she cannot obviously change. Thus, she is moving on, which is the way to do it. Normally in these court challenges, you get to the point that obviously there's nothing left there, period. So thus a new organization is being formed in the state of Georgia, called the, what is it called here? The Fair Fight. I believe that's what it is. Read my own handwriting in Georgia. We'll hear more about it. It is a grassroots organization. And in times like this, if I use that old worn-out phrase, progressives need to do that because you have to look in terms of a long visioned campaign, one that will look beyond even 2020, 2024, etc., and organize the people door to door, street to street, precinct to precinct. That is the only way that it can be done from the ground level. They came very close in the state of Georgia. They're one of the highest turnouts ever in that particular state. The same situation in Florida. It appears that Senator Nelson is not going to get enough votes out of Broward County and the counties that were left to be counted in Florida. So effectively his campaign will end next week. The reasons obviously being you can only squeeze so much out of a turnout. In Florida, given all the machinations they had. Now, and you have to remember, in the state of Florida, you had massive voter suppression. And this is one of the arguments you don't hear as much about voter suppression, but you had that in Georgia also, where you actually had a Secretary of State was supposedly overseeing the election, was in fact in charge of the fraud squad, period. So those situations, that's one of the things that Stacey Abrams will be doing. They'll be litigating this election in a federal court. And at the same time, in the House of Representatives, they'll be looking at the 1968 Voter Rights Act, and at least bring up salient points that need to be brought up. They still have the Republican Senate and DJ Trump. And they're not going to get much out of it, but they can bring the issues up. And also staring them in the face is as they say, ghost of 2016 via the persecution actually, of one Julian Assange. Now, again, this is one of those situations that there's a lot of short-term thinking here, and you have to look at it as WikiLeaks as being the people's press. If you look at it from that standpoint, then there's a chilling effect happening here, and it will continue to happen. And there are some people out there that are living in yesteryear that actually believe that if they can just punish Julian Assange, this will not happen again. That is not the case. WikiLeaks was first of all, a technology site, and this whole uproar over what the Russian Federation did or what it didn't do, did it supply these elements in Guccifer 2? Was that the issue? Julian Assange and the WikiLeaks people say no. And if you look at how their site is set up, they would know. And so, in other words, you're working on a false premise. That was one of the problems with Hillary the Monster Clinton. She wanted to go after Julian Assange. President Obama, being a constitutional lawyer, was much wiser, because these things have long-term effects. Not only, you're not just looking at the criminal trial of Julian Assange, you're looking at the future, at least for the short term, 5 to 10, perhaps even 15 years, maybe 20 years, of the press in the U.S. Now you have the other side of the coin, the commercial press, the monopoly press, and in this WikiLeaks story, you have the New York Post, the Washington, New York Post. You have the New York Times, the Washington Post, and various other publications in the U.S. that published the WikiLeaks situation. Now, Julian Assange says he's a publisher. He is correct on that issue. And if that is the issue, then the Post, which is known as the Amazon Post, and Times themselves, for publishing this, they could be charged with conspiracy. They probably will not be, but at the same time, as Julian Assange's case makes it, he's being in Northern Virginia. We'll get to that in a minute. And that is a government-friendly circ, no doubt about it. But it doesn't end with Julian Assange. This case is much, much bigger than him. And it ends with the right of the press to publish, the people's press. And this has been the problem all along here. You have two separate press, and in the era of quote-unquote fake news, the administration of DJ Trump is constantly attacking the establishment press. And this is one of the problems when you live in a room with mirrors and it's a vacuum, but you don't understand what the other side is. And this went back to the Me Too movement. Yes, the Me Too movement was a movement for justice, no doubt about it. But unfortunately, opportunists like Twitter King Booker and various others, the former mayor of the urban ghetto of Newark, overplayed their hand, became opportunistic. And that in itself, what it caused was that many conservative voters out there were mobilized that it would not have been mobilized in the 2016 election. In the 2018 election, because they would have felt that a blue wave was coming, and it did in fact come, and they would have not turned out in some of the numbers. Now, in some of those races, as in Florida and in Georgia, you're talking about under 1%, actually under 0.5%. So there's very, very close elections there. Now, in North Dakota was a different situation there. and if you go into Indiana with Senator Donnelly, and also Claire McCaskill in Missouri. I think it was a 6-point election there. It was basically where some of the polls had it all along. It was back and forth. But this is a situation that you start dealing with in terms of your grassroots organizing. And let's go firstly to the California fires, then we'll take up the press, at least started, on WikiLeaks, and we'll do a special program on WikiLeaks. Let me get that line up here from WBRN Radio. We'll be celebrating the late great Jerry Pippin's birthday on his birthday on the 25th of November. We'll have special programming. That is a Sunday, and we also have special programming for Thursday. That is the American Thanksgiving Day, not in terms of a religious connotation. This is a secular connotation. We look at the plight of working people and where working people are from 2017 to 2018 and that status there. Also, we have this weekend, we have Numbers Man. That is our macroeconomics report. And we also have an open source report. We'll be talking about the state of Libre open source software, particularly the consolidation of the Linux market as it pertains to cloud, Red Hat's absorption by the past mega giant IBM, who is also struggling in these days. We'll be looking at that. So that is a little bit of where our calendar is. To California, the wildfires there called the Camp Fire. This is from the Los Angeles Times. Mr. Cruz, Mr. Cena, and Dakota Smith, just to name a few, but writing in this on the 16th of November. Of course, today we're on the 17th. As the death toll from what they call the campfire is now at rose to 71 on Friday. The number of missing jumped to 1,000. An army of searchers scout the rubble in the ongoing effort to locate more victims. 8 more bodies were found on Friday. The number of people unaccounted for jumped from 631 to 1,011 as authorities combed through 911 calls, emails, etc. The sheriff Holmes, that is in Butte County, said that the list of missing is dynamic and may include people who were counted twice. It's always in this situation. The campfire, already the state's worst fire on record, has burned 146,000 acres, destroyed 12,263 structures. Officials say it could take weeks to complete the search for victims and, of course, the identification. DJ Trump will show up there later today. Both Northern and Southern California obviously will not be welcome. Governor Brown, they've clashed on numerous policies, and Trump has roundly criticized last week for erroneously blaming the fires on poor forest management and threatened to cut off funding to California. This is insane. And the two have pledged to work together after the devastating wildfire. Now is the time to pull together for the people of California. That's what Governor Brown said. And as the fire's massive toll continues to come into focus on Friday, many Paradise, this is residents, struggle to complete day-to-day tasks. The question of how to rebuild their lives in this town called Paradise is obviously on their minds. A number of evacuees snaked around a vacant Sears department store that had been transformed into a disaster recovery center. I won't go into the little anecdotal information here, but the lines outside the post office in nearby Chino was already a few dozen deep when Paradise resident Kathleen Richard joined the crowd at about 9 a.m. And they go on to talk about Richard here and what was happening in Chino. Now, let's go back here in all over the state here. California fire in Malibu. That's down in Southern California. Then we have Northern California going all at the same time. California fire, if you stay, you're dead. How Paradise Nursing Home evacuated. We won't go into that. Just look at these. Is from the LA Times. And basically what is happening in the LA area and in the state of now this is face masks used as protection from campfire smoke are unnecessary and could be harmful. This is from health officials here, and we'll post this. The big game, the annual football showdown between Stanford and California, has been rescheduled from Friday because of poor air quality. Smoke from campfire, that's the deadliest wildfire there, has poured into other areas 100 miles away, including the Sacramento Valley, Chino, the Bay Area, filling the sky with dangerous particles, grayish fume, etc. Has led into dangerous, unhealthy air quality. Some blazes broke out last week in the communities in the Sacramento Valley and the Bay Area, including Chino and Oranville and Sacramento. There, trying to find. Okay, Sacramento fire stations will no longer distribute masks to the public after safety concerns were raised by the county. Pete Bellinson, the county's health director, said the county decided to stop handing out the masks because they aren't necessary and potentially harmful. About 67,000 free. This is the N95 respirators had been distributed at fire stations across the region. Rather than relying on the masks, he said the county is urging people to stay indoors, a much more effective solution to the unhealthy air quality caused by the smoke. Ashy haze has blanketed many parts in Northern California, leading into unhealthy air quality index. That means most people who breathe the air there can experience health problems regardless of age, fitness level, etc. That is according to one of the air quality management districts. The Bay Area and Sacramento area schools have closed because of poor air quality from campfire smoke, including UC Berkeley, Mills College, Stanford University, the University of the Pacific, Cal State, East Bay, and Sacramento State University. While NC Davis announced it's closing its campus because of smoke, it offered students a limited amount of masks. The city of Sacramento said that its staff will continue to distribute the remaining, now this is N95 masks, and went on here to say the masks don't fit children and men with beards. It can be dangerous for those with heart and respiratory diseases. The masks can make it more difficult to breathe because of carbon monoxide buildup. That is a good 50-plus population, but can't benefit from them. So, though some healthy adults can benefit from wearing the mask, you'll see that happen in Beijing and other places out there, and we'll get this up on Facebook. But there are other masks out there besides Professor Reed was in search of some masks out there. The N95 respirators are a better quality, but there are some better ones out. Let me just quickly look this up. This, I guess, is a 3M product. The M95 respirator is the most common of the 7 types of filtered respirators out here. And according to the Food and Drug Administration, about the mask, they have it here. The N95 respirators are example of personal protection equipment that are used to protect the wearer from liquid and airborne particles. The mask is a loosely fitting, won't go into all that, but is a respirator protection device designed to achieve a very close facial fit, and this is where for use by the public in the industrial settings. So this is where it is, and you just go very quickly to Amazon. Now there are other types of masks. And this is one of those masks. I actually it's the N95. Well, that's about a $50 mask here. So depending on where you get it, I suppose these are some of the 3M down to what? About $20, I guess, depending on where you get them. The N95 certified safety masks, they tend to get a little bit cheaper. And the only reason I'm spending some time here on this is that there are other masks out there that have the filters in them, are much better masks, anti-pollution masks. These military-grade masks, they're only about $25, so you'd be actually in a better position because they are adjustable and they're washable air filter situations there. Anyway, this is our public service announcement here. Let me jump back here to the WikiLeaks story. Somewhere. And finish that up. Free press advocates worry Assange charges could set dangerous precedents, though details remain unclear. Well, yes and no. And from Department of Justice now, this in itself is a very dodgy situation. From Floyd Abrams here, he is a First Amendment specialist, said that this is the Espionage Act. It's a 101-year-old act, has long been viewed by press advocates as a potentially loaded gun that can too easily be aimed at the press, with the ultimate Supreme Court interpretation unpredictable. If you violate the Espionage Act for WikiLeaks to gather information from sources not permitted to release it, then you publish it, then what American newspaper could be free from risk, said Abrams, who presses at Cahill, Gordon, etc. in New York. It's possible that the investigation has gathered evidence that Assange did not merely act as a publisher, but instead acted to help steal information. I think the big question now is, did the Department of Justice find new evidence that would allow them to charge him with some crime, such as conspiracy to hack the computers, or some other crime other than just the publication? Or does the new administration take a different view of whether he could be charged for publishing classified information? That's from Matthew Miller, a Justice Department spokes type from the administration of Barack Obama. Was not shying away from dealing with leaks. This was the Obama administration overtime, though the department took a soft attitude towards the matter. In 1984, the then Attorney General Holder said that as long as he was heading the Justice Department, no reporter is going to jail for doing his or her job. The Trump administration obviously is different. On the Beauregard session, who is no longer there, proudly touted the number of cases the department was investigating. Now, this is where you walk into something that is very, very dicey. Barack Cohen, a former prosecutor in the Justice Department Public Integrity section, said prosecutors generally have to clear high hurdles when it comes to charging reporters or issuing subpoenas for their records. He was involved in the prosecution of former CIA official Jeffrey Stalling on charges that he leaked classified information to a reporter at the New York Times. Said prosecutors will probably examine to what extent Mr. Assange was acting as a journalist to determine if he should be given special consideration. To that extent, he is curating the news or the information that he circulates, and has a strong impact on whether or not you consider him a publisher. Now, that is absolutely correct. Julian Assange, because of the way in which WikiLeaks is set up, they are filtering information as what a publisher does. Since 2012, Assange has been living at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. He sought asylum when he was facing a possible extradition, another frame up to Sweden. If taken into custody, Assange would be able to fight his extradition, a process in Britain that can take years. The spokesman for the British Home Office would not say, but where Washington has already applied to bring Mr. Assange to the U.S. Anyway, we sort of skipped over here, something we normally don't do. Let's go back now to California and the two races there. Mimi Waters is ousted. That's down in Orange County. We used to have an office in Orange County at Cranston. Anyway, in a blow, the California Republicans reeling from defeat in the 6th election. Democrat Katie Porter has ousted Mimi Waters. Mimi Waters, in an upscale Orange County district that was long time a conservative bastion. Well, things have changed in Orange County. There's no doubt about that. At the same time, updated vote count on Wednesday. Orange County Register found the Democratic candidate Gil Gaceros had pulled 941 votes ahead of the Republican Young Kim in that seat there. The Associated Press, the AP, had projected Porter on seating of Waters. That's in the 45th district. They have found the two-term incumbent had dropped 6,203 votes behind. In the 5th, Republican, this is the 5th seat that Republicans have lost in California. They will Democrats control 44 of the 53 seats in the House. The lowest point for a state GOP over the past 2 decades. In an essay in the Washington Examiner, the former chair of the California GOP bemoaned the party's near collapse, saying Republicans were completely outmatched in funding and grassroots organization. Period. California's Republicans, along in the wilderness, have reached the point of desperation. He wrote. Porter, a UC Irvine professor, joined a breed of incoming House Democrats, many of them are women. The district includes Mission Valley, Irvine, Rancho Santa Margarita, and various of Laguna Hills. a single mother of three. Porter, 44, is a protege of Elizabeth Warren. She campaigned as a consumer attorney who has taken on big banks, etc. She was ideally fit to move forward. Walters, 56, tried to win credit for tax cuts that were also in the Trump plan. In a year when the female vote turned out strong against Trump, his fellow Republicans in Congress, Walters was taunted her bill establishing the right for sexual assault victims and didn't do any good at all, so you can forget it. Also bounced from Congress, Dana Rockenbacher. He's had, of Costa Mesa, he's had very close elections. Steve Knight of Palmdale, Jeffrey Denham of Turlock, that's in the San Joaquin Valley, and Democrat Mike Lee Levin won the seat of Daryl Issa of Vista. And let's see, Young Kim. Young Kim is going in, as they say, the wrong direction here, and this is one of the things that's continually happening in California. Long been a Republican state. Richard Milhouse Nixon, of course, was from California, and so was Ronald Reagan. But those were days past. That particular coalition there in Orange County, or Birchers and what have you, has disappeared. It started disappearing after Reagan and continued to disappear with the election, of course, of Jerry Brown. So the Republicans, Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of resurrected the Republicans, but he was, quote-unquote, a moderate Republican in an atmosphere that the Democrats should not have been in. California was an unfortunate situation there. So now they find themselves in an irreversible situation. But one point to make here on the Democratic Party there, with Dianne Feinstein and Gavin Newhouse, etc., and Jerry Brown, these people are moderate Democrats. The Democratic Party, the progressive people, need to continue to organize in California to get a progressive party, whether it be the Democrats or whatever, in California. They don't have that as of yet. They're sort of, as they say, on the train with an old line Democratic leadership that has outlived its usefulness, including Nancy Pelosi. So it's a situation with Pelosi while we're here. Will she survive? Perhaps so, but again, at 78, obviously changes are being made, or will be made in the new Congress as they move more towards some kind of leadership transition. We'll just call it at that. The best that we can perhaps do as far as that is concerned, it's set up. Anyway, we'll just leave it at that and move on here. We do have Uncle Carl coming up. Let me just... well, the Post had something on Trump and his vacations, as he'll be at his Mar-a-Lara club with a 24-dish extravaganza, turkey stuffing, mashed potatoes, marshmallow sweet potatoes, red snapper, leg of lamb, grilled scallops, good God, stone crabs. He's got it all going on here at once. Maine lobster, short ribs, beef tenderloin, all kinds of desserts, while he's got troops sitting on the American border with Mexico, and they're in tents and MRE rations is what they're eating, and they don't have any electricity there, and they don't get combat or hostile fire pay. So very unhappy troops there, no doubt about it. This is a time when another president would pay a Thanksgiving visit to the troops. He hasn't mobilized. G.W. Bush visited Iraq. That was in 2003, a long time ago. So this effectively has turned out to be an election stunt. The last time old Trump visited somebody who was a Coast Guard outpost, passed out 7,000 stone crabs. Anyway, last Thanksgiving then got wrapped sandwiches in. Oh. That was on his way. I'm not sure what that was, but anyway. And a local guard post last Thanksgiving, they got wrapped sandwiches and potato chips. Coast Guard post, they get that right here. Similarly, he visited unemployed troops and gave them a sense of mission, even a phony one, before Election Day anyway. Excuse me, this is some of DJ Trump, and I don't know about the stone crabs here. Before Election Day, anyway, blame the caravan. This is wildfires, and Roger Stone text message the Fay vets to vet the acting attorney general, then the need to finish identifications when buying buying breakfast cereal, and other people were able to repeatedly vote by changing hats in their cars. This is the kind of ridiculousness you have going on out here. Let me get while we're out west. Mina Love. She's gotten ahead of Ben McAdams here. And let me go to the Desert News. Now, this is owned by the Mormon Church, unless they sold it. And she has taken a narrow lead, according to this. A judge dismissed a lawsuit was filed by Love against Salt Lake County. Sherry Swinson over how ballots in the tight fourth were being verified. Love took a 419 vote lead over the mayor there, Ben McAdams, and new results was released on Friday. This is all we have now. McAdams gained 167 more votes than Love Friday in Salt Lake County, which includes 85% of the 4th District's voters. Love added 1,588 in Udall County. Now, that's a very conservative situation there. The race is now split 58.8 tenths for Love to 49.92 for McAdams. Very, very close race there. This is the start of Love's victory, according to her campaign manager. McAdams' campaign manager, Andrew Roberts, called Udall County results unsurprising and tracked the early margins for the campaign. He said thousands of provisional ballots still remain to be tabulated. We're optimistic when all the numbers are reported Monday. So they are continuing to count in Utah. And according to Swinson, her office is working for at least part of the weekend to finish determining the eligibility of voters who cast provisional ballots. She estimates that 85 to 90% of provisional ballots will end up being accepted. Now, if that happens, her office is still waiting to hear from 2,000 voters who've already contact because they forgot to sign their ballots. Judge Gardner dismissed Love's lawsuit there. McAdams' campaign is pleased with Judge Gardner's decision to reject Love's attempt to stop counting votes. Now, it's in Salt Lake county is similarly what DJ Trump was talking about down in Florida. Now, from the Salt Lake Tribune, they're basically same thing, dismissal of the lawsuit by Love's. Although Love's parties identified Pacific relief sought in the petition, they failed to show an entitlement under Utah law to relief sought. That's what Gardner said. He is the judge there. James Gardner, here the arguments, evidently a young man, looking at his photo there. West Jordan, Utah, where the hearing was held. The district attorney in Utah County, that is Slim Gill, whose office represented Swenson, said he appreciated the judge's rejection of the lawsuit there, and they basically have the tally. And it goes on. We'll quickly see if anything's new, and we'll go to Uncle Carl and do the sports to wind up the week that was. Hopefully we can do that. Oh, well, we'll go to Uncle Carl. Uncle Carl, will the Democrats fall in line for Pelosi? He's writing in the Wall Street Journal on the 15th of November. Can self-proclaim master legislator and astute leader Nancy Pelosi convince enough Democrats to make her Speaker of the House? It won't be as easy as you might think. Democrats have won 228 races and are favored in 5 more. Together, that would be 233 seats, a gain of 40. They needed 23, so they're about 18 up there. Still has work to collect the 218 votes she needs when the House meets on January the 3rd to select its presiding officer during the midterm campaign. 12 incumbent Democratic representatives said they would not support Pelosi, along with 10 newly elected freshman types, plus 4 Democrats who led the contest but have yet been declared winners. Democrats will enjoy a 15-seat margin after remaining contests are settled, so that if 26 anti-Pelosi Democrats keep their word, Pelosi could fall 11 votes short. The anti-Pelosi Democrat incumbents make their opposition clear. Linda Sanchez, she's from California. Sepp Morton from the Commonwealth. Connor Lamb, you've heard of him, he's from Pennsylvania. Jim Cooper called the new leadership representative Perlmutter. Just some of them. There are no votes, Mrs. Pelosi, anyway. And Marcia Fudge, she's from Ohio. It's time for people to know when to go. That's from Marcia Fudge. She's also the Black Caucus. Among the newly elected, Jason Crow won there. Max Crow said they want new leadership. Mary Scanlon said Democrats must cultivate the next generation. There's no doubt about that. And out of Detroit, Rashina Tabula said she would probably not vote for Nancy Pelosi. So these are some of the people here. Abigail Spanberger said under no circumstances would she vote for Pelosi as Speaker. She's out of Virginia. We covered her campaign amongst the anti-Pelosi Democrats leading the contest, but not yet declared as the victors. Andy Kim from New Jersey is one of those. Ben McAdams of Utah bluntly said he would not vote for Nancy Pelosi. Of course, we'll see if he gets there. With these 25 Democrats now falling through on their opposition to 78-year-old Pelosi, this won't be easy, or will they flake out and support her? Well, let's be seeing a lot of arm twisting here. And Nancy Pelosi knows how to twist the arms. The anti-Pelosi members have an option beside voting for another Democrat. They could vote president. Even 2 presidents would reduce the total needed to become Speaker by one. If all 26 Pelosi skeptics voted President, that would leave her with 207 Democratic votes, more than the 202. Pelosi would be the Speaker, but badly weakened. Addition to the declared anti-Pelosi bloc, there are 12 additional new House members who hedged while campaigning, refusing to say what they would do there. And there's a bunch of those people. Lucy McBath is one, and various other characters here along the hyper-progressive, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Anna Presley, who dodged the question, also would take fire from the left for embracing the establishment choice. Now, yes, that Anna Presley's from the Commonwealth, city of Boston. That would be very unfortunate for those people. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Support of Pelosi is not a very good idea. Donna Shalala, you can expect her. She's in her 70s also. So this is where the Democrats stack up here. And let's do the sports while we can. In the National Basketball League on a Friday night, wait a minute here. Oops. Why are we always jumping one ahead here? Anyway, on Friday night, the Raptors were in Boston. Celtics 123-119. The Heat was in Indiana. Pacers 99-91 for the Heat. The Jazz were in the city of brotherly love, and they didn't have much love there for the Jazz. 113 for the Jazz, 107 for the Jazz. The 76ers 113. Hope you get that. The Nets of Jersey and the Wizards in D.C. was Nets 115-104. The Kings and Grizzlies. The Grizzlies 112-104. The Trailblazers were in Minnesota. The Timberwolves 112-96. The Knickerbockers were in the Big Easy Pelicans 129-124. And the Bulls were in Milwaukee Bucks 123-104. To the National Hockey League we go. The Bruins and the Stars. The Stars 1-0 over Bruins in overtime. Sabres and Jets. It was Sabres 2-1. The Kings and Blackhawks in Chicago. Kings 2-1. The Capitals and Avalanche. Capitals 3-2. The Blues of St. Louis and the Golden Knights. I think they're in Las Vegas, aren't they? Anyway, 4-1. The Blues won that game. And the Maple Leafs and Anaheim Ducks. I love that name, Anaheim Ducks. In overtime, it was the Maple Leafs 2-1. On the front page of ESPN here, they have a story on Mr. Butler, who used to be with the T-Wolves, and he was able to win the game for the 76ers. So he made his debut in style. He went on to say he has much more fun playing with the 76ers. Jimmy Butler was elusive in his praise for the 76ers teammates. Friday night in that win. Basketball is just that easy with the group of guys. It's really easy. Anyway, Mr. Butler is happy to get out of the cold of Minnesota and I guess be close to New York City. One of the things to be. Anyway, we'll see you on the Monday morning quarterback on Monday morning. There, and summing up the week here. Well, the election's over. Florida, a lot of work to be done. Bill Nelson will ultimately go down in defeat there. Stacey Abrams is organizing, litigating, and continuing on the struggle in the state of Georgia. And basically that race is shut down too. We have a few House races out there. That is the one we just in Utah still going on. So what's the next big thing? Well, the budget still has to be taken care of by the end of the year. What would DJ Trump do? We have some economic figures that are coming in that are mixed. and we'll be looking at those on A Numbers Man. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on a Monday morning from the Jerry Pippin broadcast booth here at WBRN Radio. Good day.